As Lin Dong opened his eyes again, the sky above appeared somewhat dim. He stared blankly at it for a moment, allowing the memories in his mind to flood back like the tide. Senior brother Lin Dong is awake? However, his silence didn't last long, as ecstatic voices erupted around him. The commotion grew louder, and hurried footsteps approached. Before long, Lin Dong found himself surrounded by hundreds of people. Seeing the joy and concern on the faces of his fellow disciples from the Dao Sect, Lin Dong felt a warm sensation in his heart. He gave them a slight nod. The crowd quickly parted as EngSubs and EngHuan rushed over. When the latter saw Lin Dong awake, a look of immense relief flooded her beautiful eyes. However, beneath that joy, Lin Dong could discern a trace of weariness. "You've finally woken up. You've been unconscious for 5 days. If there'd been no sign of you waking, we were going to carry you back to the Dao Sect," EngHuan said with a radiant smile as she crouched beside him. 5 days, huh? Lin Dong smiled faintly, unsurprised. He shifted his body slightly, and the once depleted primordial energy inside him was now surging once more, even stronger than before. Remarkably, the many injuries on his body had fully healed. "Your recovery is quite impressive. You lost a lot of blood essence, but thanks to the Taiqing essence that Ling Qingzhu gave you, you were able to wake up," EngSubs remarked from the side. "Ling Qingzhu?" Lin Dong was slightly startled, but then nodded. "Of course, but it was Huan who never left your side during these 5 days. She hasn't slept a wink," EngSubs added with a smile. "Big sister." EngHuan's cheeks flushed as she shot a playful glare at her sister. Her embarrassed expression drew good-natured laughter and envious looks from the nearby disciples. "Thank you," Lin Dong said softly, his heart warming as he looked at the blushing girl beside him. "You're the hero of the Dao Sect, so it's only right we take care of you. Besides, Qingtan was also very worried about you," EngHuan said, pointing to the side where Qingtan stood. The young girl's eyes were red, clearly showing how much she had fretted during Lin Dong's unconsciousness. Lin Dong stood up and gently ruffled Qingtan's hair. "Silly girl, everything's fine now. It's my fault. I thought I could help you by now." Despite Lin Dong's reassurance, Qingtan lowered her head, clearly upset. She had left home, determined not to watch Lin Dong struggle alone anymore. She believed that with all her training, she could finally be of help. Yet, when Lin Dong faced Yuan alone, she realized how powerless she still was. It was as if 2 years of effort had amounted to nothing. "I don't need you standing in front of me. If that ever happened, I wouldn't be much of a big brother, would I?" Lin Dong said with a smile, gently hugging the dejected girl. Leaning against Lin Dong, Qingtan's small hands slowly clenched into fists. A firm resolve flickered in her lively eyes. From now on, she would no longer slack off in her training. "Brother Chenggue, thank you for your help this time," Lin Dong said solemnly as he released Qingtan and clasped his hands in gratitude toward Chenggue. If it hadn't been for Chenggue holding off Yuan, the losses among the Dao Sect disciples would have been far worse by the time Lin Dong arrived. Chenggue hurriedly waved his hand, now viewing Lin Dong with newfound respect. After having faced Yuan himself, he understood the immense power Yuan possessed. Yet, despite Yuan strength, he had ultimately been obliterated by Lin Dong. Along with him, over 500 elite disciples of the Yuan sect had also perished. Chenggue had always considered himself ruthless, but compared to Lin Dong, he realized he was far less decisive. If he had been in Lin Dong's position, he doubted he could have acted so thoroughly. "Has everyone else left the alien demon region?" Lin Dong asked, his gaze sweeping around. The area that had once been filled with people was now nearly deserted. The sect competition is basically over. Most disciples have returned to Alien Demon City," EngSubs replied with a nod. "Alien Demon City must be in complete chaos by now," Wang Yin said, glancing at Lin Dong. Lin Dong nodded slightly. He was fully aware of how shocking his actions were. In all the years of the sect competition, no one had ever wiped out an entire sect's disciples. And this wasn't just any sect, it was the most powerful force in the Eastern Mystery region, the Yuan sect. "As soon as we leave the Alien Demon region, we'll meet up with Uncle Chile and the others, and return to the Dao Sect," The sect competition is a life and death battle, so no matter how furious the Yuan sect is, they have no grounds to retaliate, EngSubs said. Let's go. With that, Lin Dong turned and cast his gaze into the distance. His hand slowly clenched inside his sleeve. Although his actions had been excessively brutal, he had no regrets. If he could go back, he would still choose to annihilate the Yuan sect disciples without hesitation. Otherwise, those Dao Sect disciples would have died in vain. With that thought, Lin Dong leaped into the air, followed closely by a large group of Dao Sect disciples. Together, they flew toward the distant teleportation array. Everyone knew that even greater storms awaited them ahead. In Alien Demon City, the atmosphere was as volatile as a volcano about to erupt. Though the sect competition had officially ended, the city's population had only grown, with no signs of anyone leaving. In a corner of Alien Demon City, atop a pavilion, a graceful figure in white, as pure as snow, stood elegantly. Her clear eyes gazed towards the center of the city, where a teleportation array connected to the depths of the alien demon region. Sister Qingzhu, Brother Lin Dong still hasn't come out. Do you think something might have happened? Su Ro asked with some concern, standing behind Ling Qingzhu. Lin Dong was gravely injured this time. Given his character, he knows how much trouble his actions have caused. He won't show himself until he's fully recovered and at his peak. Ling Qingzhu responded softly. Su Ro nodded slightly, but then suddenly glanced at her and said, Sister Qingzhu, it seems like your relationship with Brother Lin Dong is special? As a fellow woman, Su Ro was quite observant. Although Ling Qingzhu usually remained indifferent towards everyone, Su Ro could sense that her feelings towards Lin Dong were subtly different. Ling Qingzhu was momentarily surprised by her comment, but her expression remained unchanged as she calmly said, We met once before. Also, when I was searching for the Taiching Immortal Pool in the alien demon region, he helped me. Oh. Su Ro nodded and refrained from asking further. Seeing this, Ling Qingzhu let out a small breath of relief. Just as she was about to speak, her gaze suddenly sharpened, and she looked towards the center of the city. Her jade-like hands clenched tightly as she murmured, The Dao Sect disciples. They're coming out. Hearing this, Su Ro's expression also became serious. She knew well that the city was like a volcano, waiting for the moment to erupt. Lin Dong, without a doubt, could be the spark that ignites it all. In the very center of Alien Demon City stood a towering altar. At the top of the altar was a radiant formation, a teleportation array linking to the depths of the alien demon region. However, it was a one-way passage, allowing people to exit but not enter. During this period, people had been continuously emerging from the array. However, after the initial wave of large groups, those who appeared later were mostly lone travelers or members of minor factions, causing little commotion. Still, despite the insignificance of those emerging, this place remained the focal point of the entire city. Buzz, buzz. At this moment, the long silent altar suddenly began to flicker with light. At first, no one paid much attention, but as the light grew more intense, the expressions of many onlookers started to shift. They knew that such rapid flashing usually only occurred when a large group was about to exit. By now, most of the major sect disciples had withdrawn from the alien demon region. The only ones left were the Dao Sect disciples. Are they finally coming out? Many people murmured with anticipation. They were eager to see what kind of remarkable young man could cause such a sensation across the entire Eastern Mystery region. The eyes of the entire city turned in unison, focusing on the top of the altar. Under their collective gaze, the light slowly dimmed, and several hundred figures materialized out of thin air. The emblems on their chests immediately confirmed their identity. Dao Sect disciples. The once noisy city fell into silence, and all eyes converged on a slender figure standing at the forefront. His calm face didn't resemble that of someone who had accomplished such earth-shattering feats. In the sky, Lin Dong gazed down at the strange atmosphere in the city below, slowly clenching his fists. Boom. Suddenly, overwhelming auras erupted like a storm from within the city. In the distance, a dozen figures shot out, accompanied by thunderous roars filled with killing intent. "You cruel little bastard. We've waited long enough. Come back to the Yuan sect and atone for your sins." 6 elder figures with sinister expressions emerged from the sky, their auras surging. Atonement? What sins has Lin Dong committed? Do you really think our Dao Sect is just a pushover for you old cowards? Try it if you dare. Just as the 6 elders, filled with murderous intent, approached, cold laughter echoed from another part of the city. For figures stepped into the air, hovering in the sky. It was none other than Qilei and Chenjun. The entire city held its breath at the sight of this confrontation. As expected, the 2 great sects were finally squaring off. Above alien demon city, waves of primordial energy surged like a vast ocean. The 10 life mystique stage masters had all pushed their auras to the limit, creating ripples that made the very primordial energy in the air tremble. The pressure spread across the city, making it difficult for many to breathe. The entire city fell silent under this tense standoff, until the air was suddenly filled with the sound of countless figures streaking through the sky. Dark silhouettes, like swarms of locusts, landed on rooftops across the city, their eyes burning with anticipation as they looked skyward at the fierce confrontation. The Dao Sect disciples who had just emerged from the teleportation array were also startled by the sight, but they quickly steadied themselves, casting vigilant gazes towards the members of the Yuan sect. "These guys really won't let things go," Huan murmured as she clenched her hands tightly, her tone serious. Lin Dong nodded slightly. His expression remained calm, having anticipated this situation long ago. "Qilei, how bold your Dao sect has become, daring to resort to such vicious tactics. Are you trying to provoke a war between sects?" From the Yuan sect side, 6 elders with grim expressions stared at Lin Dong coldly. One of them, with ashen-gray skin, spoke harshly. "Dong, don't go throwing accusations around so recklessly. This isn't some children's game. The sect tournament is a life-and-death battle. Injuries and deaths are inevitable," Qilei responded calmly. "Injuries and deaths? All 540 of our Yuan sect disciples were slaughtered by this little beast, and you call that inevitable?" The elder called Dong twitched in anger and roared furiously. "Dong, you're the head of one faction in Yuan sect, but where's your composure? Over the years, haven't many of our Dao Sect disciples perished at the hands of your Yuan sect? The sect tournament follows the natural course of life and death, and victory depends on one's abilities. If your Yuan sect disciples lacked skill this time, let's be blunt, Chunjun's icy gaze locked onto Dong. They deserve to die." Chunjun's words caused many onlookers to smirk in secret. Clearly, Dao Sect had tolerated Yuan Sect's actions for far too long. "Chunjun, what did you say?" The 6 Yuan Sect elders erupted in fury upon hearing this, their voices filled with rage. "If you'd like to hear it again, I wouldn't mind repeating it," Chunjun sneered. "Chunjun, we're not here to bicker with you. You should know how serious this matter is. We've already reported it to Yuan Sect, and the 3 great sect leaders are furious. This situation may not be something the 4 of you can handle," Dong said, suppressing his anger while his expression darkened. At the mention of the Yuan Sect's 3 great sect leaders, a flicker of change passed over the faces of the 4 Dao Sect elders. In the Eastern Mystery region, the names of these 3 were enough to strike fear into many. Dong, even if you bring up the 3 great sect leaders, it won't change anything today. The rules of the sect tournament were established by the 8 super sects together. What now? Does your Yuan sect plan to disregard the rules? Do you think that because your Yuan sect is powerful, you can ignore the other 7 super sects? Qilei's voice turned cold, clearly not backing down. His words placed Yuan sect in opposition to the 7 other super sections. Though Yuan sect was the strongest, it was evident they couldn't possibly take on all 7 sects at once. Qilei, don't try to twist things just to defend that brat. Dong's cold gaze fixated on Lin Dong. "We've already received orders from our sect leaders. We are simply here to invite him back to Yuan sect. Rest assured, we won't harm him. When the time comes, Dao Sect can sending Xuanzi to collect him. You'll have to see if I agree to that first," Chenjun said calmly. "If we let you take Lin Dong away, How will our Dao Sect have any face left in the Eastern Mystery region? Chile scoffed. So, you're not going to cooperate? Dong's face darkened, and he sneered. Even though you four have reached the great completion of the life mystique stage, do you really think you can stop the six of us? A cold glint flickered in Chile's eyes as he stood his ground. Then try it and see. Refusing a toast only to drink a forfeit. Dong's patience finally wore thin at Chile's unwavering stance. His voice turned icy as he said, "Since that's the case, don't blame us for being rude. As I've said, we're only here under the orders of our sect leaders to invite Lin Dong to Yuan sect. Do you really take us for fools?" Chen Zhen retorted mockingly. If Lin Dong were taken to Yuan sect, who could guarantee they wouldn't secretly resort to underhanded methods? Retrieving him afterward would be no simple matter. Take him. Dong's eyes turned chillingly cold as he waved his sleeve. His voice, filled with killing intent, spread swiftly across the sky. Boom. The moment Dong's voice fell, an overwhelming surge of primordial energy erupted from the Yuan sect elders. In an instant, their figures shot toward Chile and the other three like lightning. Dao Sect disciples, fall back. Chile commanded, his eyes now filled with a cold resolve. Primordial energy surged around him as he too leaped forward. Chen Zhen and the other two immediately followed. Boom, boom. Terrifying waves of primordial energy collided in the sky, creating bursts of deafening noise that reverberated like thunder, filling the heavens with their might. Lin Dong, you and the others leave now. Amid the chaotic explosions of primordial energy, Chen Zhen's voice rang out. Lin Dong glanced at the fierce battle in the sky, his expression serious. After a brief moment of thought, he nodded and shouted to the Dao Sect disciples, "Let's go." In such a high-level battle, ordinary disciples couldn't intervene, and staying behind wouldn't help. Given Chile and the other strength, they would likely be able to escape even against 6 powerful enemies at the great completion of the life mystique stage. Lu Tong, stop that brat. As Lin Dong prepared to retreat with the others, Dong's sharp voice rang out from the sky. Several figures quickly sped toward Lin Dong, hovering just ahead of him. It's you? Lin Dong's expression showed a hint of surprise as he recognized Lu Tong. Boy, you've really grown bold, Lu Tong said, his eyes locked on Lin Dong. His emotions were complicated. Just a year ago, Lin Dong had been a mere insignificant figure. Now, in such a short span of time, he had grown to this extent. Lin Dong gave a faint smile. Lu Tong had once seemed formidable to him, but now, it was clear he wasn't all that impressive. In terms of strength, he was even weaker than Yuan Tong. Lu Tong, surrender at once. Even Dao Sect won't be able to protect you from this disaster. Lu Tong shouted coldly. With just you lot? I'm afraid you don't have the qualifications to speak to me that way. Lin Dong glanced at Lu Tong and his group. They were all enforcers from the Yuan Sect, and their strength had reached the peak of the 9th Nirvana stage. In the past, they might have been formidable, but to Lin Dong now, they pose little threat. Arrogant. Lu Tong's face flushed red. It was clear he had never expected the small fry he once dismissed to now treat him with such disdain. Capture him. Lu Tong's eyes gleamed with malice as he shouted. Swish. At his command, several Yuan Sect enforcers leapt into action. Primordial energy surged as they reached out to seize Lin Dong. Whoosh. But just as they moved, EngSubs, Wang Yin, and the others standing beside Lin Dong sprang into action as well. Having already stepped into the half-step life mystique stage, their power surpassed that of the Yuan Sect enforcers, and with a surge of primordial energy, they easily blocked the attack. Lu Tong's expression darkened at the sight. Just as he was about to strike himself, Lin Dong's figure suddenly blurred, moving with ghostly speed. A cold laugh echoed in his ears. I told you, you don't have the right to speak to me like that anymore. By the time the voice faded, Lin Dong had already appeared in front of Lu Tong. Lu Tong's eyes narrowed, and he angrily swung his palm, infused with powerful primordial energy, at Lin Dong. Facing the fierce force of Lu Tong's palm, Lin Dong made no move to dodge. A faint azure glow surfaced on his arm, and a dragon pattern appeared faintly. Boom. A thunderous collision followed as Lin Dong's fist met Lu Tong's palm. The impact sent waves rippling through the air, and Lu Tong was sent flying, his face filled with shock as he stared at the young man standing motionless. The small figure he once belittled had now surpassed him. Let's go. Lin Dong, after sending Lu Tong retreating with a single punch, had no intention of wasting any more time on him. He waved his hand, ready to leave. Where do you think you're going, boy? Come to the Yuan sect and atone for your sins. Just as Lin Dong was about to withdraw, a furious voice boomed from the sky. From the blazing battle above, an elder shot forth, his palm transforming into a massive hand of primordial energy, hundreds of meters wide, blocking all of Lin Dong's escape routes. Clearly, a great completion life mystique stage powerhouse had finally freed himself to join the fray against Lin Dong. Lin Dong's face grew serious as he watched the enormous hand approaching. Just as he was about to make a desperate move, something stirred in his heart. He quickly turned his head and saw a streak of light speeding toward them from the distant sky. At the same time, a wild, arrogant laugh echoed above alien demon city. Haha, where did this old geezer come from, thinking he can lay a hand on Lin Dong? You'd better ask Lord Mink's permission first. The laughter, filled with a violent energy, rumbled through the sky like thunder, drawing countless gazes. Under the astonished stares of many, two streaks of light shot across the sky like lightning, appearing above the battlefield in the blink of an eye. Boom! One of the figures threw out a palm, unleashing a torrent of purple-black energy. Like a raging storm, it collided with the massive hand of primordial energy aimed at Lin Dong. Boom! 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 The two overwhelming forces clashed fiercely, shaking the heavens. To the shock of all present, the massive hand, created by a great completion life mystique stage expert of the Yuan sect, was quickly corroded and dissolved by the purple-black energy. Who dares challenge the Yuan sect? Seeing his attack thwarted, the gray-robed elder appeared in the sky, his face darkening as he stared at the shattered hand. His eyes then turned sharply toward the two streaks of light that had just arrived. The light dissipated, revealing two figures standing beside Lin Dong. One was a towering man, as tall and broad as an iron tower, his skin dark like forged metal, gleaming under the sunlight. A powerful, unyielding aura emanated from him, making it clear just how strong and resilient he was. Beside him stood a slim man in a green robe. In stark contrast to the hulking figure, this man was slender and refined. Most striking of all was his strikingly handsome, almost ethereal face, the kind that could stir jealousy even in some women. The sheer difference in their physiques created a jarring visual contrast. But who else could they be but little Mink and little Yuan? Big brother, looks like we're a bit late. We were planning to find you in the alien demon region. Little Yuan scratched his head, offering Lin Dong a sheepish grin. Quite the scene you've caused. I've already heard about the mess you stirred up in the alien demon region. Well done. Little Mink materialized and, without even glancing at the gray-robed elder, turned to Lin Dong with a teasing smile. After a brief pause, he asked, "You all right?" Lin Dong looked at the two of them and shook his head with a smile. He could feel their tension ease the moment they saw he was unharmed. A warm smile tugged at his lips, and a wave of warmth flowed through his heart. Who are they? Behind Lin Dong, EngSubs frowned slightly as she looked at the two newcomers. That's Lin Diao and Lin Yuan, Lin Dong's sworn brothers. They joined the Dao Sect together, but after Lin Dong entered the sect, they left to train, EngHuan explained. She was clearly familiar with Lin Diao and Lin Yuan, especially since they had fought side by side at Demonic Sound Mountain. Oh. EngSubs seemed a bit surprised. She looked carefully at the two, her gaze slightly serious. From the big, burly Lin Yuan, who had a naive smile but stood like a towering iron wall, she sensed a strong and dangerous aura. It was as if beneath that honest appearance lurked an extremely violent nature, quite similar to Lin Dong when he lost control. It truly was a case of being influenced by those around him. As for little Diao, EngSubs also paid extra attention to his strangely handsome face. However, her already serious expression deepened because she couldn't sense any danger from him at all. Generally speaking, people who gave her that kind of feeling fell into two categories. Either they were harmless, or their strength was so far beyond hers that she couldn't perceive it. If she hadn't seen him fight earlier, she might have thought little Dao was the former. But since he had easily shattered the attack of a great completion life mystique stage expert, it was clear he didn't belong to that group. The only answer was that little Diao's power was so overwhelming she couldn't detect it. Unfathomable. That was EngSubs' first impression of little Dao, and she was quite astonished that Lin Dong could be connected with such a person. Hee hee, you've got a good memory, little girl. Little Dao suddenly turned his head and smiled at EngSubs as she and her sister were talking. He clearly had a deep impression of her. As a reincarnator, EngSubs was someone even he feared. He knew that once she awakened, she would become one of the most powerful beings in the world. But from the look of things, it seemed she had some feelings for Lin Dong, which was definitely a good thing. EngSubs gave little Dao a quiet, graceful smile in return. Huh. Little Diao's gaze shifted from EngSubs and suddenly stopped on the girl standing nearby. He was momentarily stunned. What's this girl doing here? Qing Tan? Lin Yan's eyes were also fixed on the girl in surprise. Qing Tan noticed their gazes and was equally confused, her face full of bewilderment. Did they know her? Qing Tan, do you remember Lin Yan? Lin Dong chuckled and patted Lin Yan's arm, smiling at Qing Tan. Lin Yan? Qing Tan blinked in confusion for a long moment before her eyes suddenly widened in disbelief as she looked at the towering man before her. She covered her mouth with her hand. Lin Yan? Back when Lin Dong and Lin Yan left the Great Yan dynasty, Lin Yan couldn't transform yet. So in Qing Tan's mind, Lin Yan had always remained the giant fire python tiger from years ago. Now, the tiger that had once carried her all over town had turned into such a fearsome figure. No way. You're really Lin Yan? How did you become like this? Her shock only lasted for a moment before she curiously rushed over. Her small hands kept touching Lin Yan's iron-like skin, chattering nonstop. Lin Yan looked at the girl, who was buzzing around him like a little bird, and a smile spread across his simple, honest face. The violent light that usually flickered in his eyes was replaced with a rare gentleness. Clearly, he remembered those old times quite well. Don't be rude. From now on, you should call him Brother Lin Yan, Lin Dong said with a laugh as he patted Qing Tan's head. Then he pointed to little Dao beside him and added, and this guy, he's been watching over you for years, though you didn't know because he was hiding inside me. Now, he goes by Lin Dao. Hearing Lin Dong's words, Qing Tan nodded and curiously glanced at little Dao before whispering to Lin Dong, this brother Lin Dao is really handsome. Though she spoke quietly, little Dao clearly heard her. A faint blush appeared on his usually thick-skinned, handsome face, and Lin Dong couldn't help but laugh when he saw it. Little Dao, who usually had thicker skin than anyone, was actually embarrassed. Who are you? Exactly? Lin Dong is someone our Yuan sect's leader personally ordered to bring back. I suggest you stay out of this, or you'll be courting disaster. The old man in gray, hovering in the sky, finally spoke after watching little Dao and Lin Yan completely ignore him. His face darkened as he coldly shouted, "Annoying old man." At this moment, little Dao finally turned his head. A playful smile spread across his handsome face. So I killed a few Yuan sect disciples. Do you have to get so worked up over it? Hearing this, the old man's eyes grew icy, and he replied coldly, that brat killed 540 of our Yuan sect's disciples. His killing intent is too strong. Our Yuan sect is trying to help him by bringing him back and guiding him, so he doesn't lose his way. I don't care what your relationship with him is. I advise you to stay out of this, or the price you'll pay will be too high. Is that so? Little Dao raised his head with a bright smile, but it slowly twisted into something more sinister. He extended his long right hand, and a purple-black flame gathered in his palm. The bone-chilling voice that followed was filled with murderous intent. You meddlesome old dog. Little Mink stood in the air, with purple-black flames surging from his palm, the firelight casting a glow on his handsome face. A subtle yet chillingly sinister aura began to rise from him, sending shivers down the spines of onlookers. At this moment, Countless people in Alien Demon City were left stunned by little Mink's words, soon muttering to themselves, "Who is this guy? He even dares to dismiss the Yuan sect? Quite the brother you have." EngShao and the others exchanged glances. Little Mink's temperament seemed even more erratic than Lin Dong's, and his words were ruthlessly sharp, leaving no room for diplomacy. "You dare court death?" The gray-robed elder's eyes turned icy cold, his face twitching in fury at little Mink's blunt provocation. "If you're in league with that brat, I'll take you down as well," the elder snarled, his expression twisted with rage. "With just you?" Little Mink chuckled, crossing his arms behind his back. His tone carried an unmistakable air of disdain, and though he appeared wildly arrogant, there was an undeniable charisma in his defiant posture. His striking appearance drew admiring glances from many women in the city below. "Let's see how long your arrogance lasts." The gray-robed elder's face turned ashen as he suddenly launched himself forward, primordial energy flooding out like a torrent. It transformed into a towering mountain, crashing down toward little Mink. "Humph!" Upon seeing this, little Yan's usually innocent face immediately darkened, his demeanor shifting with astonishing speed. In an instant, the seemingly gentle giant transformed into a fearsome Shura-like figure, exuding a murderous aura that sent chills through the air. "I've got this." But before little Yin could act, little Mink waved him off. With a nonchalant motion, his purple-black flaming hand reached out, and he grasped at the incoming mountain of energy from afar. Boom! As little Mink clenched his hand, the space around the energy mountain distorted violently, as if some invisible force were crushing the very fabric of reality. "Shatter!" A low, guttural voice escaped from little Mink's lips, and the spatial distortion intensified until the primordial energy mountain was crushed into nothingness under his grip. Primordial energy spilled across the sky, while the gray-robed elder's face grew increasingly dark and solemn. This simple gesture from little Mink revealed his terrifying strength. The elder, for all his confidence, knew he couldn't match such a casual display of spatial manipulation. "He's regained even more strength?" Lin Dong, watching from below, smiled slightly. The last time they had encountered trouble at Demonic Sound Mountain, little Mink's power hadn't been at this level. Clearly, his strength had been recovering rapidly during this time. "At this point, no one in the Life Mystique stage can match him," little Yin said, grinning at Lin Dong. Lin Dong nodded. It seemed that little Mink had reached the peak of the Life Mystique stage. He wondered just how terrifying this guy would be at full strength. "Is this all you've got? And you dare to act tough in front of Lord Mink?" Hovering in the sky, little Mink smirked coldly after crushing the energy mountain. His hand, still ablaze with purple-black flames, suddenly turned toward the gray-robed elder, and he clenched it once more. Boom! As his hand tightened, the space around the gray-robed elder distorted again. This time, the purple-black flames seeped through the cracks in space, swirling toward the elder with frightening speed. The gray-robed elder's face drained of color in panic. He waved his sleeves frantically, summoning an ocean of primordial energy to block the incoming flames. Sizzle! The energy collided with the purple-black flames, producing a continuous hissing sound. To his horror, the elder watched as his powerful energy defenses rapidly melted away under the intense heat. Swish! With a flick of little Mink's finger, the flames condensed into a purple-black fire dragon, piercing through the elder's defenses and slamming into his body. Boom! A dull explosion echoed across the sky, followed by a sharp scream. The gray-robed elder was sent flying back, his skin scorched red, a trickle of blood at the corner of his mouth. His aura weakened considerably. Clearly, he had suffered significant injuries. The spectators gasped in disbelief as they watched the elder, a formidable expert who had reached the great completion of the Life Mystique stage, be so easily overwhelmed by the handsome young man. How was it possible for him to last only a few moments? Such power! Who on earth is he? On a distant pavilion, Ling Qingzhu's eyes were filled with a rare hint of solemnity as she observed the battle in the sky. Although he looks no older than you, his true age is likely far beyond that. His strength has surely reached the perfect completion of the Life Mystique stage, The beautiful woman beside her, a leader from the Nine Heavens Taiching Palace, said with equal gravity. She, too, was at the great completion of the life mystique stage. That's Brother Lin Diao, one of Brother Lin Dong's sworn brothers, Su Ro interjected with a cheerful smile. Oh. Ling Qingzhu and the beautiful woman exchanged glances, then looked towards Su Ro. Brother Lin Dong's trio all came from the great Yin dynasty. When we first met at the start of the 100 Dynasty War, Brother Lin Diao was quite fierce and wanted to chase us off. But later, Brother Lin Dong spoke up, and they allowed us to join them, Su Ro giggled. Brother Lin Diao might seem harsh, but he's actually very kind. He never goes against Brother Lin Dong's decisions. Ling Qingzhu and the beautiful woman exchanged another glance, a hint of complexity in their eyes. As they looked toward Lin Dong in the distance, they realized that with every encounter, he continued to surprise them. That this handsome young man, whose strength had reached the perfect completion of the life mystique stage, an elite figure even within the Eastern Mystery region, was Lin Dong's sworn brother, was yet another unexpected revelation. Boom, boom. In the distant sky, a fierce wave of energy erupted, sending several figures flying backward. Among them were Qi Lei, Shirimo, and others who had been locked in battle. Lu Yu, the 5 members of the Yuan sect, including Shirimo, were shocked to see the disheveled gray-robed elder. Their expressions changed instantly. This guy is incredibly strong. I have no idea where he came from, said the gray-robed elder, known as Lu Yu, glaring in frustration at little Mink in the distance. Shirimo and the others frowned, their eyes darkening as they fixed their gaze on little Mink. After a brief pause, Shirimo stepped forward and said in a low voice, "This friend? You might as well all come at once," little Mink interrupted with a light smile before Shirimo could finish. You. Shirimo's face twisted in rage. It was clear there was no need for further words. The person before them had made it obvious. He intended to stand against them. Fine. I'd like to see just what you're capable of, to dare make such arrogant claims here. Shirimo sneered, sweeping his sleeve dramatically. Not far away, Qi Lei and the other 3 glanced at each other, momentarily confused as they looked at little Mink. They didn't understand why he was stepping in to help. Who is he? Qi Lei asked, puzzled. He seems to be a friend of Lin Dong's, Chen Zhan replied hesitantly. He had seen little Mink before, but back then, his strength was nowhere near as terrifying as it was now. Qi Lei and the others were taken aback. They hadn't expected Lin Dong to have such a powerful ally. I'll handle them. In the sky, little Mink cast a glance at Qi Lei and the others before taking a step forward. With each stride, violet-black flames surged behind him, spreading like a demonic god descending from the heavens. All of you, come at me together. Otherwise, you won't have another chance. The sky filled with surging violet-black flames as little Mink's handsome face curved into a cold smile.